What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. In every episode, we get the distinct pleasure and honor to speak to a brother or sister who's just doing exceptional work in every field of human endeavor, for business, sports, culture, you name it. And they share their God story, the ways in which God has been at work in their life and the ways in which God has been at work in their work. And I am so grateful today to have our sister, my sister, Monica McNutt. How you doing, sis?
I'm well, Lawrence. Thank you for having me. I'm very well.
Yo, I think I remember we were getting on this call. I was mad hype, y'all. Y'all know that I come on here really hype, but I was really hyped for this conversation because number one, she's a baller, and y'all know have been rocking with me for a bit. I love basketball, and so anybody who's doing that. But number two, I kind of put a joke, and I was just like, she has the most jobs of anybody I know in life, right? Like my, you know. But I can't say it better than she can. But there's some things that you've come to know, and I've probably come to know her, especially over the past couple of years. She's on Around the Horn, MSG for our tri-state area family, anchor host in the AM, started in the PM. You know what I'm saying? Fox, you know, like balling, doing the podcast. Shout out to my brother Porter's doing the podcast here. Like my sister is doing everything, but the beauty of it is that she is doing it, but there's a foundation behind all of that that is exciting and that we'll get into today. And so, without me doing the sway in the universe soliloquy about all that she does, let me get out the way and say, who is Monica McNutt?
I gotta say, hopping up in these new places and spaces, I have been given some incredible intros, and it's just a little ego stroke, pat on the back, little shoulder shimmy. I'm very thankful for that intro, Lawrence. Man, who is Monica? Wow. I'm just a chick, man. Like I'm just a chick. I think in the big picture, obviously I'm a child of God and I walk in that, but I'm just a chick. Like I don't see I think it's so important that we understand that we are all human beings. And while we have gifts and talents, I would never, ever big time anybody. Like it's funny through this ascent, right? Like folks are like, don't forgive me when you get big, blah, blah, blah. Like, and I know it's a joke, but I actually hate that. Like I despise that. Because there have been so many people that were with me in the trenches, whether that was, kindergarten through playing basketball in the local arenas or not arenas, local rec centers here in the Prince George's County area. People that stood with me when I didn't think that this career thing was going to come back around. And so I'm grateful for the role that everyone has played in the journey. And so I very much take my people with me. Like when I have an opportunity to do a show when the wardrobe is not traditional, I'm wearing hoodies made by my friends, t-shirts made by my friends, like jewelry from my friends' lines. Like I am taking my people with me because so many people have stood alongside me. And I think in those relationships, it's my duty to put on and take them with me because I know that God has put people strategically in my life to speak to where I was in seasons, reasons, or lifetimes. And so I'm just me. I mean, I'm so thankful for that. So it's funny because when I was a little girl, I used to have a plaque in my bedroom that said my name meant advisor, which actually has not come back to mind until just now. But now that I have these opportunities to speak and use my platform and use my voice, I try to be very mindful of what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. So it's good. I'm just very grateful.
Yo, I love this energy, and I actually think it's a distinct energy, and I think you could probably hear that, right? I've not been alone. I've not done this alone.
Mm-mm.
The people who've been with
Mm-mm.
me in the valleys, nobody done
Mm-hmm.
changed up. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's a refreshing thing because I think sometimes when people see, I think this chapter of your life, sometimes people assume otherwise. And I think even there's the parts of the story I think we'll get into where just the reality of the community, the village, even publicly looking out and making opportunities available, and we'll get into that. I'm just taking myself back to Suitland, Maryland. You know what I'm saying? I have some PG County, Montgomery County people who very prideful about where they from in Maryland. You know what I mean? But I'm just imagining your home, and you know your parent, and just describe your home coming up, because there's like I think when people come, like all my sisters, I have three sisters. I'm the only son, but like did you have a sports house where y'all all did, because we all did sports, and obviously school was important, all these different things. Like describe the dynamic that you felt cultivated, because your father in many senses was writing, is a writer, creating. Was it like there was a lot of books around the house and there was a basketball outside? Like just illustrate your home life coming up.
So I think I had incredible balance at home in terms of the yin and yang that my parents brought. My dad is a hoop head. Loved all sports. Like my mom tells a story now that he only stopped golfing once he became a dad, because he no longer fit to it, right? Like my dad, if it was a ball, my dad was interested. Like she's like, when I met your dad, he was playing tennis, and I used to love looking at his legs, and I'm like, whoa.
He had the calf ministry. Didn't he?
Man, so my dad was all about sports, and then my mom is a little bit more of an academic. She's a little bit more of a grinder. I definitely say that I got my work ethic and my pursuit from my mom. And so, I went to the church school. My mom actually ended up teaching there. My dad coached there at points. I mean, Girl Scouts ran through it. Like we did a lot at our church growing up. And so then when I got to ninth grade, and my dad is like, listen, we need to put her in a position to get an athletic scholarship. And the athletic program where we were just wasn't sufficient. And so my mom didn't love the idea. Of course, I've gotten all these stories now on the back end that I'm older. But, my parents worked together. They, my mom saw some counsel from some women that she loved and admired. And it was like, this is your husband. You chose him. Trust him. And sure enough, my dad, the one parameter that my mom gave my dad was that she didn't want me to go to a co-ed school. And so she thought for sure my dad wasn't going to find it. And lo and behold, the Academy of the Holy Cross in Kensington, Maryland, which it plays in the WCAC here in the DC area, which is a great great athletic league, but it was also a well-known academic group of schools. And so that's where we ended up. And my parents call it the first design dilemma, because up until that point in my life, everything in our world was really like maybe at the most a 20-minute radius. And Prince George's County is very unique. So I grew up around successful Black people, 2-car garages, 3-car garages, luxury vehicles, like degrees on their wall. Like that's my doctors, my dentist, everybody was Black. That's nothing for me. And so that experience for me going out to Kensington was the first time that I truly was a minority in a sense, right? Like the basketball team was Black in high school. There was a sprinkle of other Black girls there, maybe 2 Black teachers. But for the most part, it was a predominantly white girl school. And so my sister and I had to get on the metro until we started driving. That was a 45-minute metro ride. Then it was, an hour-long drive, depending on traffic. And so that was our first design dilemma. And when I look back at it now, Lawrence, I'm like, dang, how did we manage to get it all done? My sister was the better student. I wasn't a slouch either. Like I was a decent student, above average. But, I was playing ball and looking to get a scholarship to play ball in college. But I also, my mom wasn't letting me bring in seeds in the house. Like that just wasn't a thing. Once that was your weakness, that we're gonna know you working, and that's okay. But other than that, that's not how we roll. So I had a really tremendous balance in terms of my dad and we went to the gym on Saturday mornings. I mean, that was the first time that I learned, what it requires to be good at something. It wasn't spend a night at your homegirl's house on Friday nights, or if it was, your dad's coming early in the morning because we're going to the gym. Like I asked my dad to help me pursue a career in basketball. And the first thing, I'll never forget it, the first thing he said to me is, do you want to play or do you want to be good? And I was like, I want to be good. And then we had a conversation about what that looks like. So basketball got a lot out of me, but basketball has given me a ton in return. And so I'm very grateful for the path. But I think my parents offered really good balance. They were strong yin and yang. And then my sister, who's not an athlete at all, was into theater. And my sister doesn't get enough credit because she has strengthened me to deal with all types of people. And so when I got to college and had a teammate who was a little cantankerous to start, I remember saying to her, one day we were arguing, she wasn't speaking to me. And I was like, I'm not worried about you. Like, you haven't met my sister. So we're going to be good. We'll figure this out. So yeah, when I tell you my people that have been with me before this career path was even fully realized or identified mean the world to me. I am low-key getting emotional thinking about it, because vision or not, the love and the sacrifice, like, I get it, and I'm so grateful for it.
Shout out to Melanie. Shout out to Melanie in these streets. You
Mm.
know, I'm gonna hold this up, and I'm gonna fast forward a bit on the career side, but I want to get back to this genesis of God piece, because sometimes when people, there's a, let's say an active dynamic between your father and a daughter, right? And often
Mhm.
if there may be a role where, for example, when people talk about like married couples doing business together, and it's just like, all right, like, you're my wife and you're my husband, but then like we have a different role in this thing. It's sometimes the switching is hard. For you, how did that dynamic with your father even inform or even influence your how you viewed God? Because a lot of times there is like oh man, I want to make my dad proud because he's my coach. Was there any type of dynamic when you thought about God, when you're introduced to God and you understood where you're like, oh man, this, am I coming in trying to impress God? I start there because I know the number of brothers and sisters who were like, there was like, that was a journey for them. But was that your story when you were introduced to God? Was it like, God, I got to make God proud versus God, nah, God is just cool no matter what I do?
Um, so I think growing up in church, you don't necessarily have that personal revelation, right? Because it just is. It's life. It's what you know.
Yep.
And like, yeah, thank you, God. Like, I love you, God. Great, love it. All that. And so I can actually remember it as an adult when my dad got sick. New Year's Eve. Ultimately, his appendix burst. His appendix burst. And it just kind of came out of the blue because my dad doesn't really get sick. And so I remember then thinking, wow, I've never questioned. And so, okay, so I got to give you a little bit of the timeline. I came back home career-wise in 2017. Tail between my legs.
That was the 18 months?
It was a mix
of
of
18 months?
Yeah, that was 18 months. I came back home in 2017, sort of like, okay, God, like, I know I'm not bad at this. I don't know what's going on. I've been laid off before. I'm going to get a job. I'm not going to worry about it. Didn't happen that way. But in that span of time, my grandfather got a prognosis with cancer that he had, we was getting ready, prepared to go to hospice, right? So he would pass away in that window. My aunt ended up in the ICU in that stretch. I can't remember exactly why. And then my dad ended up in the hospital to end that year. And in the midst of all this, I'm looking for jobs, not really getting responses, but also like, wait a minute, this is far more important. Like, because the rat race of the career is going to keep going with or without me. So there was this duality, I think, in my mindset that like, okay, I'm looking for jobs because this too will pass. One thing I know about seasons is they're going to pass, but also like, this is where I need to be. And for the past 2 years, I have been away. And these people literally were aging, and I was missing out on these moments and these memories, right? So when my dad got sick at the end of that year, it was kind of like, wow, I've never thought of my dad not being there. Like he's always been around. Like this is my dad. And I can remember being really still. I don't remember where I was. I might have been in a house by myself. And it was kind of like, if that's the faith you have in your natural father, how much more should you have in your heavenly father? And so that was kind of the side tapping into the part of me that was still concerned about the job part, because it wasn't coming. It wasn't happening. And I kind of remember then like really putting it to bed, like, well, wow. Like, you know how you had those moments where you very clearly hear God, like, and you'd be like, okay, well, that's that. We'll put that to bed. And so that was one of my moments where it was like, this is your natural example of a heavenly thing that is exponentially more powerful, right? So that for me was one of those moments that was like, ooh, okay, all right. You truly are the author and the finisher and in control of this thing. So let me just do what I can do, control what I control in terms of that which is in front of me and my mindset, and we navigate this thing. And so fortunately my dad recovered and all that good stuff. But to answer your question, growing up, there was never really, I always was aware of that my dad was my coach, but my dad was my coach. Like, I think a lot of girls that play ball with their dads kind of, that's my dad and my coach. And we have a great relationship. And a lot of it, yes, is rooted in basketball, but now that's just my dad, and I have a great relationship with him.
I love this, and thank you for sharing that. It is there's like often levels. I have conversations with brothers and sisters. It's like it's not like God wasn't real because they grew up in some. For some of them, they grew up in the church, and it was like I knew God. I was aware of
Mm-hmm.
God. I had a relationship. I talked to God. Knew the scriptures, all that. But then there was obviously like with time, we mature and we crescendo. There's levels, right? And then they were like, but it got
Mm-hmm.
realer in X or this
Mm-hmm.
happened, and I was like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're real, and oh, I really need you beyond the culture of you around it.
Mm-hmm.
I one of the things I admire. There's a lot of things I admire about you, but there's one thing I admire that I've noticed or observed was when I kind of hear about the transition, right? Because when you ended your career, I think for people who are maybe not athletes, they may not understand like being at let's say like just being at a place where you feel like you came so close, to winning something or moving on, and you're like, I'm still good at this thing. Like I can go overseas. I can like like I could still ball, right? But obviously there was a
Mm-hmm.
moment you had in college that kind of opened you up to this journalism career and all this stuff. Was there a wrestling identity? There wasn't. It seemed like there wasn't really an identity war of all right, cool, this is done. Let me move on and let me try to find some opportunities. And you're working locally, you're doing all this stuff. Was there a wrestle at all? Because it just seems like it's very matter of fact, the transition, like, all right, my career's done, right? Georgetown, I'm out, right? It was great. Now I'm going to start this career.
Mm-hmm.
Was that because of just like just a pressure of like, I never see myself professional? Or it was just like, nah, I just know who I am and I just know this is done. And God told me that.
Um, I think my parents were always big on not quitting.
Mm,
And so we set goals, we set whatever the end of whatever assignment or task or team we joined was going to be.
mm,
And the goal when I started playing ball was to go to school for free. And I had accomplished that. And I just talked about it. I had given the game so much
mm,
that honestly, it was more a curiosity of what else is there.
mm,
And I didn't. This is the one wrinkle, the one little thing that I sometimes look back on is maybe I should have attempted to see if I could have made a WNBA roster. I didn't even really try. At that point, still working with ego as a young person is like saying that I walked away versus being rejected. So, and then there genuinely was a curiosity about what was next. I don't know. It's funny you said the levels, right? There's people that are good enough to make teams in college. They on a team, they don't play. Then there's the people that play, right? And I, didn't go to the WNBA, so I can only imagine what some of my classmates, Jasmine Thomas, Maya Moore, like some of my classmates, the work that they put into the game to continue to be professionals to this day. But I knew that I had given the game my heart and soul and had made a ton of sacrifices without question. And so for me, it was what's next and how else can I use my gifts, talents, and abilities? What else do I have to offer? And not walking away from sport entirely because I knew I wanted to stay in media. But I genuinely was like, okay, what's next? The only, I did have a minor physical identity crisis. So I was like, and this might be too much for the space, Lawrence, but it's okay, it's fine.
Oh, no, we good.
God, being the super like flat chested athletic girl is not cute anymore. Like I'm not an athlete. I need to get a job. That was quickly put to bed when you look at price tags. But honestly, I didn't because I think for me, the vision was clear. We're gonna go to school, we're gonna get a degree. I walked away with my degree in zero debt, and it was like, all right, what's next?
I mean, it's you say this so matter of fact, and I can tell also probably with your staccato of delivery. When you're on the shows, it's very it's like boop boop boop, like it's like
Yeah.
but I think that reflects just a fate, like, and so even now, like fast forward, I joked about it, but for me, I just see a character of faithfulness. Right, that may be the athlete in us, kind of like the former athlete. People just say like my boy used to call it gorfs, like good old regular folk, and like this, right? But just this, how do you, navigate? You take this opportunity, and these are not guaranteed. Like, okay, I'm gonna be on air, right? You're like, all right, I'm gonna produce this. Okay, I'm gonna be in Florida. I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna work on this podcast. I'm gonna do this. You're doing so many things, and some people may say, oh, you're spreading yourself too thin. You're not focused on this. Right? Is that from fear? Right? How do you maintain the energy And also, how, what was your conversation with God as you were navigating opportunity to opportunity to opportunity? Like, okay, this is gone. All right, this is gone. And you talked about the denouement, like that moment of being home and then starting again and picking things up. Like, what's your conversation with God when you're like, I'm at this opportunity, I'm having a good time. They may not be paying me out the block right now, but like, like, how are you keeping yourself encouraged? What were you saying with God at that time?
I think it was like, and I think sometimes people do this thing where like prayer is like super deep, and not that we don't have those prayers that we just pray the house down, but for me, prayer in that season was very simple. It's like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna trust you. Okay, Lord, gu- guide me, put the right people in the right place. Let me have an ear to hear and a heart to listen. Okay, Lord, like, okay, Lord. And I think it's so crazy, Lawrence, because I actually think when I ain't had nothing going, that was probably like my sweetest, quietest fellowship and truly just trusting. And when you think about scripture and it talks about, in our weakness he's made strong, like boom, that's one. Or like let patience have a perfect work, right? So that you can endure and be made whole. Like all of those things are like you gotta be stripped bare, you know? And I think I found myself a lot of times just looking at nature, because I think that's one of the ways in which God communicates with us. And I love the beach. Like I love the beach. Um, but at the time, right before I came home, my sister was living in California and Denver, so I was seeing mountains more than I had previously visiting her. Um, but I can remember at one point, I would kind of, you would find yourself standing by the ocean, scrapping together all of my rewards points to make a trip to go see my friends down in Florida. I was still um, just like I am so small compared to all of this. But at the same time, like I got me. And like that can be so overwhelming, but also so soothing and affirming. Um, wow. And so it to be here today, not that I did not think it could happen. And there were moments of frustration. And I remember one of my second mom, as I call her, saying, you can get mad and get frustrated. Just know that when it comes to arguing with God, you got dinosaur arms and they're not gonna reach. And there were I don't want to play it like it was always, oh, I trust God, no worries. Like there were moments of turning on the TV and seeing chicks that I was like, wait, what? Like I'm as talented. I could do. There were moments of I've diligently poured into this. Why is this not coming back to me? Right. But I think sometimes we are so uncomfortable in this idea of stillness until you're forced into it. And so the thing that I maintain now is I would not change that period of my life because it reminded me that I'm so much more than this career path. We're gonna ride the wave, baby. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna ride the wave. I'm gonna bring the energy, bring the heat. But at the same time, if tomorrow this was not it, okay, I'm gonna be okay. Like I'm going to be okay. Because I've been kept. And so through that period, it was little things. It was like, okay. And I remember my pastor saying at one point, sometimes we need to do our math differently. We're so busy worried about what's not happening in terms of, and forget about what is happening. And I was embarrassed at 27 to come home. Like I was substitute teaching, didn't necessarily have it, but I was never hungry. I was never cold. I was here when my family needed me the most. I was able to take care of my bills. Like I was reinforcing this idea of budgeting and you know what I mean? Like I spent quality time with people that now I would kill to be able to have some of that time back in my schedule. You know what I mean? And so I'm very much, people say it's glass half full as opposed to half empty, but that's real. And so that was the point in my life where I truly began to develop this attitude of gratitude sincerely. Because I think, and maybe as believers, we do a bad job of this, like, oh, I'm protected by God, woo, woo, woo. Nah, dog, I'm going through the roughest time in my life, but I'm at peace because I got this umbrella, right? And that to me is the beauty of what we have as believers. And so I can show up with joy in the midst of a bunch of craziness happening in my life, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. So to answer your question, during that season, it was very simple. Okay, Lord, all right, you said, your word says, I'm reminded that. And yeah, and that's just kind of how we navigated it.
Your arm's too short to box with God. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? That's a Nas line, but that's actually scripture. Like this, you were spitting, sis. You know what I'm saying? But one, just I don't want people to miss that, right? Just playing back the, I think sometimes we overcomplicate it. And the truth is, some prayers, there's some prayers where I'm sitting down and it's like silent the first thing, and I just get up, I just say, "Just God, I'll trust you," or "You see me, God, you see everything." Like, or and so I think that's gonna get people over the barrier sometimes of just thinking that you need to be out here sounding like the new King James. Like it's like, no, like just say something. Just be honest. Just be honest. How long, right? Why? But then also in that time, just the perspective shift that you had. I think this is timely, even as I kind of get to this part of it, because I just think that people would ask this question: the importance of building a life, right? And you talked about how your identity is beyond your work. You're like, you know what? Like, I have family. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. Like there's so many things that I've been able to enjoy. Like, if this thing ends, I'm good. That I think many brothers and sisters in these times can't, or they're not able to say in the same way. I'm actually going to put this one off because I'll hold this one in the back pocket till we go. Village, because it just one of the things that are refreshing, even in just early conversation, is just like you just seem so genuine. and like I said, when you're on around the horn, like when you speak, it's kind of like, it's just like she genuinely feels this way. Like, this is just not the angle they gave her. Right? Like, this is like she genuinely feels this way, right? It's just so genuine, authentic. I think that's a character of God, of just being so. I just think that draws people in. But ultimately, like, I think you've had to navigate in this faithful time. There's so many people you came across, so many people you work with. But that village ultimately helped open doors, right? Shout out to Lashana, and Jamil. Like, what has relationship building looked like for you, and just being, because I think sometimes there's violence for people in these in these industries where it's like, I got a network, and make sure I'm connecting and building relationships. And then, like, I just genuinely, like, connect with people who, I try to help and try to be of service and bring value. What was your mindset? How was your faith just informing how you built relationships with people? Was it even a thought pattern, or you're like, I'm just gonna approach it how I always approach it?
No, it was definitely a thought pattern. And I actually, there's a part of me that hopefully finds some space into a classroom one day. And I would definitely impress upon my students, and even now, my mentees and young people that ask me, you got to network with sincerity. And that was something that I had to learn as well. Because just like you just said, you're taught, all right, you're only as good as your network is worth. Go network, right? And so here I am, like, hi, I just graduated from University of Maryland with my master's. I'm looking to get into sports journalism. Like, I've read so much about you, right? Like, and now that I'm sort of on the other side, like, I understand why those people would look at you with a smile, and that's kind of the extent of it, maybe. Like, and it's not a knock against them, but how can I help? Like, help it, make it easy for me to help you. And so I think we actually do young people a disservice when we just holler, go network. Like, what does that look like? Because it looks different industry to industry. It looks different person to person. My style and my approach is not going to work for everybody. And that is totally okay, because there's something that works for someone else that does not work for me. And so I had to learn to network from a place of sincerity. And to some of that, Lawrence, is try the spirit by the spirit. Because you're going to shake plenty of hands. If you shake 10 hands, you might get 2, 3 that are sincere and connecting and helping you, right? And that is okay. Like, you don't need every yes, you just need a yes of value.
That's a word for somebody.
So I think, but the other thing that was imperative, and actually I got to give credit to Issa Rae on this one, because she was kind of the first person that brought it to my attention.
Horizontal, vertical.
Exactly. She's talked about networking across as opposed to trying to network up. And when she said it, I remember, I don't know if I saw it on Twitter or something, but you could kind of look at her body of work and see where she had pulled her friends along, and like, you see what's happening. Then I just happened to stop and look and see where my friends and my peers were. And it was like, oh, wow, right? But I think what Black people have to do in particular in that is we've got to believe that there's enough. And then you can layer that on to the different groups, right? Because for me, what Black women in sport have to do, myself included, I had to learn, is to believe that there's enough. Because there was a shift, and I just was having this conversation with Maria Taylor and Andrea Carter 2 weeks ago when we had the women's tournament opening weekend. There was a very clear shift in my mind from, okay, they already got a black woman. They won't hire me. They got a black woman. Dang, that's just because her weave long. I'm better than her. Dang, that's because her boobs big. There was a shift from counting to let's go. Like, I'm so happy that she's there because she's working on the path that is going to help all of us. I'm so thrilled. How can I connect with her? How can I support her? Sis, what you need me to retweet? There was a very clear shift. And for me, it all kind of culminated in that 18-month window where it was like, do you trust me or not? And when I was able to fully trust that God had my journey and that my toil and work and diligence would not go unrewarded, then I could truly find joy for other women. And so then I was able to network across and be sincere in that, right? But this wasn't always me. Like, I take that back. This was always me. But in terms of genuinely rooting for, even to someone else's viewpoint might seem like at the expense of myself, that was a growth thing. That part is the God thing. Because it is a very competitive and saturated industry. And it's tough. Three of us audition for the same opportunity. It can only go to one. But I trust that my walk, my journey, the door that's supposed to be open for me is going to be open. And Jamel kind of said that to me one time too. I had an audition for a position as a sports anchor in Charlotte. And she was like, Mon, like, you really just got to trust that what's for you is for you. And she said it, and I was kind of like, but you paid and like big time, like you can say that. Like, I'm just trying to get back in the game. Like, I need a job. But it's true. And I think you don't know what you don't know. We say that, but at the same time, you don't know till you know. Right? Like, when I could look back over that stretch and know that I have been kept, even though was the biggest thing I had going was substitute teaching and teaching cycle classes, but I have been kept and my family have been kept, and I can see God's faithfulness over my life. Like, how dare I start sweating this stuff? How dare I not show up and be rooting for other women? You're for real? You're not gonna trust? You got this whole track record right here of how he showed up and kept you, and you're not gonna trust? And so that was kind of the direct correlation in terms of my faith in who he has called me to be, allowing me to get into this space and be me.
Fam, when I say that's a word from on high, there's more than enough. There's enough. God is a God of abundance.
And I think there's more than enough, but I also think, and we could apply this to the faith, we could apply this, in conversations that are not necessarily faith-based, but I've said to a number of my friends and mentees, supposed to is what messes us up. Right? Let me tell you, in my supposed to, I will turn 32 this year. I'm supposed to be having baby number 3, have been married for 4 years, like be national full-time, like am I supposed to? Right? That's not it. And it is good. It is so good that that's not it. And so I think we have to be caretakers of what it is that is in front of us, whether it aligns in our big supposed to or not. But I think, and you mentioned it, the faithfulness with which you handle what is on your plate allows you to take yourself with you as you go in a way that is prepared. Right? And so, I mean, Lawrence, on so many levels, I would not change that season in my life. It made me a better budgeter. It made me a better friend. It gave me more perspective. And it was preparation. It was preparation.
Man, the team, I don't got it. That's a decline. You know what I mean?
Listen, like, I don't know where we at that budget became such a bad word. Like, I don't know what Instagram world y'all live in, but I ain't got it. Like, and it's okay. Like, I can remember my cousin had a birthday over that stretch. And my cousin, she loves her birthdays. She was taking trips. And she was going to pay for me. And I remember saying to her, it's okay that I don't go and don't have it. And I know that irks you, but you got to let me go through my process. Like, it's okay. We got to work through this idea of FOMO, because I can't be everywhere and to everything and everyone and all that. Like, it's okay. And so I say that season helped me develop a healthy relationship with the word no, the ability to use it and also receive it. And I think you really have to trust your process. And I am thankful, even as a young girl, I think my parents, I'd have to ask my sister if she feels this way, but early on in life, I was very comfortable with the idea that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay. I mean, I cut my hair in 9th grade. Like, I was a tall girl. I played sports. Like, for the record, the little dude you had a crush on was like, no. Like, so early on, I kind of realized you're not gonna be everybody's cup of tea, and that is perfectly okay.
Mm. Yeah, I always tell people, man, like, I don't know about y'all, but I can get something. Like, I'm just getting the message. I'm taking it all in. I want to push this further, and recognize even the time, that we have. How does this inform how you do your work? And so there's one thing, like, I think there are people who feel like, all right, great, I need to show up to people, I need to be nice, I need to do, but you're on camera, you're describing, sports, but you're also describing, in some sense, I think over the past couple months, even though this is evergreen, we've seen a lot of things that actually points to larger disparities, larger issues in the world, right? We saw the NCAA join, and thank God that you had a platform to speak to, this not even LA Fitness for these people. Like, what I'm saying?
Right.
This ain't, so how do you think about just your work, the actual content that you're speaking about, how you do it versus other people in light of your faith? Is there a process that goes into, like, all right, how do I show up? How do I speak about these matters? How do I speak about matters involving players, right, in a way that I think is godly? How do I speak about, is there even a framework? It could be no, but, like, just, is there a mindset about how I'm doing this differently outside of the fact that I'm just different, or maybe that's just that is it, and that is the God in it because it's you.
So again, if I could copyright a couple of quotes of mine, one of them is, you take yourself with you wherever you go. That's already in me in terms of compassion, right? Like, in terms of listening, in terms of wanting to present and lead with love. That's already in me, because if it had to be, hold on, let me go into my checklist, the lights are coming on too quick. You know what I mean? So I walk in that. I mean, in general, I'm a curious person to an extent, because then I'd be like, I gotta turn all this off because it's too much going on. Where's my salt lamp? But I am mindful. And part of this is age, because I haven't always been mindful. And even when you see me on camera now, I used to talk a lot faster on TV because that's how I talk. But you become more polished in the space. I think I am very proud of taking myself with me wherever I go. I am someone who looks to be compassionate, looks to present with joy, looks to operate in love, and looks to understand. So for me, as a Black woman who plays sports, I understand this idea of, I hate, it sounds negative when you say it, but this idea of a double minority, right? I'm Black, I'm a woman, the whole bit. And so, as I said, I take all my folks with me. It is not just representing the people that have tangible, active relationships with me. I'm very mindful in this space that I represent Black women, right? And so, if I have this opportunity to dispel whatever stereotype you may think you have, that's my intent, my goal. To present, to connect, to cause you to think or smile, right? And so there's not a lot that goes through my mind outside of preparing for whatever topic that I have to speak on. Because honestly, Lawrence, and you probably can attest to this, what you see is what you get. Like, here I am.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. As we're tailing up and closing, I am curious about your rhythm, your daily rhythm, because, as I said, I can't say what I said offline on, but my sister got jobs, right? Let's just say that much. She got jobs, right? And so I was asked this question about, like, what's your ideal rhythm with God? If you kind of just had, like, day into life, let's say everything that you would do is packed, how do you best connect with God in the reality of what your responsibilities are? Like, what does it look like? You're waking up at what time? How are you connecting? What does it look like for you to ideally connect with God?
I'm working on that in this season, Lawrence, to be honest. And that's why, again, that 18-month window was like, I had nothing to do but to sit in my journal and look at scripture and then journal and, like, talk to God. You know what I mean? So I'm actively working on that. And I think I can say that when my feet hit the ground in the morning, my eyes open up, the first thing out of my mouth is usually, thank you, Lord. Okay, Lord, here we go. Right? And, COVID has been tricky. I think online service and stuff at home is cool. But I do miss that communion. that fellowship together. And so I'm working on that. And again, we talked a little bit offline about the word discernment, but there are moments where these are funny moments. I'm like exhausted. March almost killed me. Like March was insane, right? And it's literally like, girl, you better not complain because you know you was praying for this. Like, you better not complain. Don't you even part your lips, right? So literally, it'll be a very random, okay, Lord, thank you. Thank you, Lord. And like, let's go. We got to lock back in. And so there's been a lot bouncing around in my mind in terms of, how to stay connected, how to best stay connected, representing as I continue to move forward. Because I've been very, very fortunate. And I think for me, the testimony is how you operate, showing up, people connecting, people wanting to ask, and then we can have a conversation, right? But I think that when I look at my life, in and of itself, it is the witness, Because if you ask me, oh, baby, at the root of this, it's a God thing, right? At the root of this, it is His peace, His sustainability, trust in that. And it allows me to move with such a peace. Like, I think when you get to the place where you don't even jump up and down about no's, like okay, cool. And not that it's not like, dang, I wanted that opportunity, but it's also like, okay, like I am so locked in terms of trusting. And I have seen His faithfulness, right? So daily, that's an ongoing thing. Some days you have more time to sit and be still and journal and get quiet and listen. Other days you're moving and shaking. So that I'm continuing to grow there. And I think the mistake we make, my mom always says it, doctors and lawyers are practicing, right? But we all are practicing people, right? We're practicing being better in whatever it is that we're chasing. So I'm practicing being a professional. I'm practicing being a sister, daughter, friend, girlfriend, the whole bit. And so I'm learning. This has been a new chapter. I'm very much looking forward to this little bit of vacation that I got in this little quiet little joint in Florida so I can go stand by the ocean and just be in awe again, because there's so much going on in the world, good, bad, ugly, indifferent. But I think when you really take a moment and think, he leave the 99 for the one, and like, He's got me, that can be so overwhelming, in a good way. So this conversation is a bit of a challenge to really kind of figure out what that rhythm looks like. My days vary so much, but never is there an end of a day or a beginning of a day where I'm not mindful of whose I am and who I am and how I got here.
Yo, shout out to God. Shout out to God. Shout out to oceans. If creation sings your praises, so will I. I know you be out there like with your hands up. Yeah, I mean, I want to say this as we close. I am thankful that you are in the position that you're in at this time. I think it's a different time. Some people, I think, and this is beyond women's sports. This is sports in general, right? When I think, I see you as an analyst of sports, and a dang good one. But there's a shift, I think, people's relationship to sports, how they view it. Like you said, the past couple years have been kind of wild from a sports perspective, and social connection and implications around that. And I just think for such a time as this, I think God has called up brothers and sisters, those who know Him, to be strategically placed in places as the shift is happening, to help guide it in a way that I think makes us a more redeemed, a more as on earth as it is in heaven, in all ways, in all areas, in all industries. And so I'm thankful for you, for your faithfulness, for not giving up, for standing in this space, for having a village mindset, bringing people up, for being honest, for being yourself, because that was what I think it draws everybody. I was like, she's so cool, like, and honest. But I thank God for you, and I think on behalf of those who will see and listen to this, thank you, Monica. You are our sister, man. So we gonna be repping, we gonna be shouting, we gonna be around the horn in 5. Sometimes it's hard at 5. So I'll be honest, you know what I'm saying? I got the screen, I got mad screens around the, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's hard to catch all of it. But I say that to say that we gonna be repping. So what do we have? For brothers and sisters who like, what's coming up? What do you have coming up that we could kind of rally behind? And how do people find you? Right? How do people find you and support you? But what do you have coming up that they could support and pray about? But also, how do people find you and connect with you?
Ugh. We're still here?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we good.
Okay. I guess you can find me on socials, but I'll be ducking out on social. I ain't even gonna hold you because that's just it's too much. It's too much work. Too much energy.
Your last post is
too
like,
much
I'm ducking out. Yeah,
like,
I just came back here to post this.
like that meme of people like posting things and then running, like that's me. Like this is here because I'm supposed to do it, but I really don't care. Bye. I'll see y'all later. And I'm working on that because that is a place of connection. It can be a place of connection. But I just there's something at some point maybe I will be in a position to have a conversation about disconnecting. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel, how things happen to be cyclical. I think we're going to move into a space where we truly begin to grasp the power of disconnecting. But anyway, okay. So I am on socials, last name first, McNutt Monica. The WNBA season will get underway March 14th weekend, or excuse me, May 14th weekend, I believe. So I'm hoping to be there, hold it down for the girls, the gang. And then I'm finishing out with MSG as the regular season winds down, and we'll see what that looks like for this summer, potentially there. But I got a podcast, Buckets, Boards, and Blocks, with my good brother, King McClure. Mm-hmm. You can catch us there almost every week. And, I'm piecing it together, Lawrence. I'm doing a bunch of different fill-in stuff. I got radio tonight with ESPN and radio Friday and Saturday night, or excuse me, Thursday and Friday evening. So, again, the rhythm is just one day is jazz, one day is rap, one day is, R&B. Like the rhythm just, we get with it. Throwing some classical in there. So I'm all over. I'm all over. I'm having a blast. I'm very, very thankful.
Oh, this is so dope. People was hitting you up in your Twitter, like, I'm saying, can you have any vintage WNBA jerseys? I like them. You know what I mean? Like, just be careful. You're gonna get new friends. But I hear you. I hear you under this connection. Maybe that'll be a future conversation. But my sister, I'm thankful for you. You are dope. You're a daughter of the King, and we will support you in all that you do. Because I know that you are supporting as many people as you can through your work. And so God bless you. We love you. Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me, Lawrence. This was excellent.